Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are today. I'm very happy to be here with you today and to be able to introduce Yasco Aracava, who's speaking to us all the way from São Paulo, Brazil. Today, Yasco will be talking about inner transformation, the example of Paul of Tarsus. And this is part of our series of lectures, Seeds of Knowledge. We are so very happy to be here with you, Yasco, and would also want to take opportunity for those who have not really understood or know about our organization. The Solitude Center for Spiritual Living is what I call still a baby. We're not even a year old. We open our doors, virtual doors, in April of 2022. We are 100% virtual organization with members of this founding members of this organization based in different countries, in different places of the world. Basically, we are having representatives in the Americas, Brazil, the US, Europe, and within Europe, we have many of our members in Germany, in the UK, in Portugal, etc., and also Asia, specifically in China. So with that, we have a broad base and love that we're here to speak about the concepts based on Spiritist body of work, this immense literature under the tutelage of Joanna De Angelis. We thank you so very much, Yasco. And before I ask Yasco to take on the mic, I wanted to introduce her for those who do not know her yet. So Yasco is now retired professionally, right, Yasco? But she is an active contributor. She's a speaker, like here today, in many different Spiritist organizations, including the United States Spiritist Federation, the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, our center, the Solitude Center for Spiritual Living, the Chico Xavier Center, and many others. Yasco has participated in several study groups focusing on the Spiritist codification and other study groups, such as a series of books written by Joanna De Angelis or Andre Luiz, etc. She was based in Baltimore, Maryland, Baltimore. I'm sorry, Baltimore, Maryland, for several years, and has recently gone to live in São Paulo, Brazil. Professionally, Yasco is, as I said before, retired. She was a biomedical researcher in the field of neuropharmacology at the University of Maryland School of Medicine in Baltimore, Maryland. Yasco, I am so, so happy to have you here. And I know that we'll have time for questions and answers. So please send your questions and we'll have Yasco speak to them. So with you, Yasco, I will go to the studio and you have the mic, as I said before.
Hello, dear friend. It is so nice to be today, this morning here. I am in Santos, São Paulo, almost a little bit more than a year already. And I'm so glad to be still connected to you in United States, especially my home, and also be connected to the Spiritist movement around the world to keep knowing what's going on, and now more specifically in Brazil, because I'm a recent acquaintance of this movement here. So I'm very, very honored for this invitation, to talk about what I have learned about Spiritism, about Jesus Christ Gospels uh, for over last 20 years, because as I told you before, when I left Brazil in 2002, I knew nothing about Spiritism, very little about Christianity. And now I'm so eager to learn. And the process of learning is to transmit to others. When we try to study, to prepare a lecture, we are the first one to absorb the new information. So I'm so thankful for all the invitations because it's my opportunity to really put my brain, my soul to learn new aspects of Jesus' teachings. So thank you. So today I'm going to reflect with you about inner transformation. And for that, I think it's easier if we have an example of a person that commit so many mistakes. We're going to talk why we all continue to make mistakes, to not to move forward in our virtues and try to leave behind our imperfections. What are the roadblocks, like happened to Saul of Tarsus? So he's a great example because in one incarnation, he transformed himself so much that we say, wow, if he's able to do so much, if I make an effort, I will be able to do 10%, 15%, 20% in all different following incarnations. Okay, so let's see here. Should I? Okay. The first slide, let's back. Can we put the whole screen? Okay. So if you see here in this banner, this study was based in this wonderful book called Paul and Stephen, psychographed by Francisco Candido Xavier, dictated by the Spirit Emmanuel. The High Spirits say that actually Emmanuel was also a medium because he was conveying the message, the descriptions done by higher spirit than Emmanuel, most likely Paul himself. Stephen was also a medium, a spirit medium, together with Emmanuel to convey all this information to Chico Xavier. So we have spiritual discarnated mediums, many of them in higher hierarchy, and finally ending to this wonderful incarnated spirit that was Chico Xavier. So, and also I shows here Stephen stoning or ordered by Paul, by Saul of Tarsus, which was a huge event in his transformation, but not still the final one. He was starting to be bothered with his actions. Then the bottom one here is he going with his assistant, his servant, going after Ananias in Damascus, because he wanted to persecute Ananias, which was a Christian, and who changed, transformed or converted his beloved Abigail to Christianity. And finally, when he sees here the light, brighter than the sun, which said, I'm Jesus, and had an important chat, soul to soul, with Saul of Tarsus in that moment, which is a huge event in his transformation process. We tend to think it was the moment Paul just converted to Jesus. No, no, no. He still kept making mistakes, sliding down and coming back stronger. So it's a process. That's how I want to convince you that don't expect us to be converted at once. It's a process. It's a going upward, forward, and going backwards once in a while, going back, forward again. And in this process, slowly, perhaps not in one incarnation or two, but in many incarnations out of mercy of our Creator that gave us this chance to do our evolution slowly, steadily, following this determinism that is the evolution towards perfection, leaving slowly our imperfection behind and replacing by noble virtue. Okay. So let's see who was Saul of Tarsus. We have to understand uh, who he was in order to see what was his transformation process. From where did he started and from to where he finished at his death. So Paul of Tarsus, Saul of Tarsus, at that time he was a soul. He had a very privileged background. He was very well educated, born as Jewish, born also as Roman citizen, because his father was granted with Roman citizenship. So he was born already as a Roman citizen. So the citizen of the world, because at that time, to be a Roman is to be allowed to travel, to go through the whole almost universe that was a planet that was known, civilization that was known at that time. He spoke Hebrew because he was raised in a Hebrew family. He spoke perfect Greek because he was educated with the best in the university in Tarsus, with the best professors, educators that were coming from Athens, from universities in Athens, in Alexandria, which were the best of the best. And because of some problems, they moved at that time to Tarsus. And he spoke perfect Latin because he was Roman citizen. As a religious person, he was a doctor of the Mosaic law. He was beyond even that. He believed he had this special assignment gave by who knows where, written where, because they don't find all these assignments so clearly put to designate him to go and protect, defend the Mosaic law out of even prosecuting those that were not following this law. There is nothing written there. But he decided he analyzed, he says, the papers, the law, and decided that he was there with this special mission. Also, he was privileged to have as a mentor of the Hebrew Mosaic law, as a mentor, Gamaliel. Who was Gamaliel? At that time, he was there in the highest position in the temple, the Sanhedrin. And Gamaliel asked Saul of Tarsus' father to let the young boy, to come to Jerusalem, from Tarsus to Jerusalem, to learn, to be educated, to be tutored by him, to be later in the near future, to replace him, to replace Gamaliel in the highest position at the Sanhedrin. So there is his background that could not be better given if it was not by Gamaliel. And who was Gamaliel actually? Gamaliel was the grandson of another great Hebrew rabbi called Hillel or Halil or Halil. Who was him? He was the doctor of the law that said most clear than any other rabbi that love was the basis of all the law, all the God's message. It was love. And Hillel was important especially for Brazilians, because he was behind the transference of the Christianity, the Jesus doctrine to Brazil. And he was born in 14th century, 15th century, as the Henrique de Sagres, to boost the navigation in Portugal in order to forward the technological means for the Brazil to be, quote unquote, discovered, and the whole European through Portugal to be transferred the Christianity to the New World country, Brazil. So that's how Saul of Tarsus is so important to Brazil. And we celebrate São Paulo's foundation last January 25th. And the day was especially marked because was set forward for that date to be the date of São Paulo Foundation, the seat of São Paulo Foundation, because Padre Manuel da Nóbrega, that was no other than Emmanuel, together with Padre Anchieta, the two founders of São Paulo City, they received a special message from Paul of Tarsus, Saint Paul, to found the city and call São Paulo in commemoration, in celebration of this wonderful soul and spirit that passed by the planet. And Emmanuel was really fond of him, was almost his mentor, spiritual mentor. So Padre Manuel da Nóbrega, that was Emmanuel reincarnation in that time, for 14th century, 15th century, 1554, found São Paulo and put the name São Paulo in celebration of Saint Paul. Okay. That said, he was a brilliant orator and debater. He could convince all people around with his voice, his argument. argument. That's how successful he was to even manipulate the doctors of the law in the temple in order to do what he wanted to do, including the persecution to go after the new Christians. How brilliant orator and debater he was. But he had the negative part that prevented, that gave opportunity to reinforce his imperfections, his vices, mainly power, especially the use and abuse of the power, because he had some personality trait that was very negative. One is ambition. He was very ambitious because he was already foreseeing him as a replacement for the Gamaliel in the highest position. And all the people around was saying, oh, yes, and accepting already him before he was nominated. He had a determination, which could be a positive trait. However, in Saul of Tarsus was negative, but there was some stubbornness. He was stubborn to the point that he was blind. It's a blind determination, which is very dangerous. Pride, as I said, pride is the beginning of all the other imperfection because it doesn't allow the other virtues, the virtues to come in and for us to be awakened. The pride is a heavy shielding for our transformation. So he was very prejudiced. Social class, because he belonged to a very high class in all three fronts: religious, education, Greek, and power, Roman. So he was very prejudiced, and he was partisanship. He had this partisanship. And I put a definition of partisanship: strong and sometimes blind adherence to a particular party, faction, cause, or person. That made Saul of Tarsus believe that he had the right, he was entitled to go after whoever he wanted, to what organization he decided to go after and destroy. At the time was Christians followers, Jesus doctrine. And in the process, person by person, he was after that to destroy, to the point to sentence someone to be stoned, like happened to Stephen. But we have to think not only to Paul. We tend to think, well, Saul had so many warnings, many mentors that had to tell him, look, pay attention. He had a very privileged people around him, Gamaliel, poor Yasco, poor Marcia, poor John. Do we have also these mentors warning us, telling us to be vigilant, pay attention, like happened to Saul? Yes, we have. It's just to remove our blind stubbornness, pride, selfishness, egotism. impatience, intolerance, etc. Then we remove the veil of our soul and try to see it through. All the inspiration that is coming to us, all the people around us that are there not by chance. They are there as a person, a spirit, a soul that was driven to us by the higher loving mentors to warn us, pay attention. Can be our parents, can be our siblings, can be a colleague, can be a neighbor, can be a teacher, can be a very much lower class person that we tend to dismiss. Can be. Okay, so let's talk about pay attention soul, because for emotionally it's easier to put our eyes and use the example of other, not ourselves. Okay, so but everything that is given to soul is not privilege. We also have, and he had to pay for having missed all the opportunities for his awakening. So let's see. First, he had Gamaliel as his educator. Gamaliel as the follower of Hillel. He also believed love was the basis of every action, every activity, everything that every thought, every behavior that we try to put forward is love. So how he missed that? Because Gamaliel taught him. He had the love of Abigail. If you read the book, Poet Steve, Abigail was the sister of Stephen, loving, loving, loving lady, young, very bright, and plus, Saul was in love of Abigail. He was granted with this sentiment of love, loving a loving person. Because sometimes we have someone loving us, but we dismiss. Was not the case. Was a mutual sentiment. How couldn't Saul get it? What Abigail was saying there in that soft way to him. Also, he had the invitation before he started to prosecute the Christian. He was invited to go to the house of the man in Jerusalem, where Simon Peter, and the others were giving all the assistance to the poor, to the sick, in this wonderful assistential house. They were called the men of the way, the men of the way. He said, well, but he went there with his friend, Sudok, but he didn't see, but there was someone that was equally Hebrew and following the Mosaic law, like Gamaliel, Stephen. They were all big and serious followers of the Mosaic law. Nevertheless, Gamaliel and Stephen could see the loving work of these men of the way. Nothing to be prosecuted. Nothing wrong of them following what Jesus, the carpenter, teaching. The work that we're doing was of higher level. That what Stephen immediately saw it and converted, was eager to follow Jesus' doctrine, and so Gamaliel. When he saw his old friend, powerful, before powerful Jewish, but now abandoned by the family because he had some leprosy or something like that. And they're being kindly treated by this man of the way. So why Saul didn't see that? Why Saul was not touched by this opportunity, by this loving circumstance? Because of pride. Then the other very powerful event was when he encountered Stephen. First, there, Stephen was speaking, giving his speech, doctrinating, teaching about the Jesus Christ doctrine to the people that were coming to this mansion of the way. He instead humbly trying to see if Stephen was following something that was against the Mosaic law. No, he was filled with envy because Stephen, although he looked so humble, he knew Mosaic law plus the Jesus Christ's doctrine better than him. So he couldn't accept that. He invited Stephen for a new encounter, now in his headquarters in the temple. Now he's going to be prepared. And for the second time, he still put him not down, but in the correct place, showing that he was missing the point. But his pride, his selfishness, his eager to prove he was the best, he decided to imprison all the men of the way and Stephen. And then came Gamaliel, said, because of Gamaliel advice that at that time was still his tutor, it was still the high rabbi there, he gave an advice that I point here to you, which is amazing, to Saul of Tarsus. Leave them alone, because if this plan or movement, this Christian movement, is of human origin, it will fail. It will disappear because it is of human origin. However, if it is from God, remember, they were monotheists. They had this strong notion of God. However, if it is from God, you won't be able to stop them. And you may even, you Paul, you Saul, will even discover that you are fighting against God. In Acts 5, verse 38 and 39. How strong is this advice? Was it strong sufficient for him to free Paul, Peter, John, I think perhaps James, I don't know who was in that group? He said, okay, I release him, they can go. However, Stephen stay, and he's going to be persecuted, and he let everybody approve that the stoning to death was the correct sentence. And so, unfortunately, Gamaliel gave up, and he said, well, he has to have time, experience to finally get it. But he at least saved, at that moment, the group of men of the way to be stoned equally. Okay. So that was a very strong opportunity that he missed. Then comes Abigail's. When during the stoning, Abigail, his beloved, how to say, noiva, She was asking him before Paul to find her brother Jeziel, but she didn't know Jeziel was Stephen, and Saul didn't know Stephen was Jeziel. And find out when Jeziel was almost dying uh, because of the stoning. But that was a strong message. Imagine even so how much he was impacted by this. Because he invited Abigail for the wonderful event. At that time was wonderful to see a ceremony of someone being stoned. But Abigail said, no, I cannot see that. I'll go in the end. But was not enough to save her brother. But Stephen said, go in peace, forgive him. When Saul understands that he should now put all his effort that now he's putting in defending the Mosaic law, now he puts to defend and to propagate the Jesus Christ doctrine of love, he will be better than any one of us. So forgive him. That made Saul almost shake down. How come a person dying in that humiliating situation we still think about Saul, his persecutor, as a person worth to be loved by his beloved sister? But then comes the conversion of Abigail. So Saul, when after this event that Stephen died, he ran away. He left Abigail behind. Abigail did not really punish him or said bad words to him. Said, no, I forgive you, so stay with me. But he couldn't. He ran away, left Abigail behind. And Abigail, in that time that Saul was out, she was sick. She was in such a depression. And came Ananias, the new Christian, and started to talk about the love of Jesus. And Abigail was converted to Christianity. So when Saul decided to reconnect with Abigail and came back, it was too late for him, because he found out Abigail also was already now a follower of that carpenter. He got so upset. Abigail died in his arms, but he was so upset with Ananias, and he manipulated the temple, all the doctors of the law there, in order to give the papers, the legal papers, for him to go after Ananias. Abusing physically of one person there, he found out that Ananias went to Damascus, ran away from Jerusalem to Damascus, going away from Saul. So he went to Damascus. It's a road from Jerusalem to Damascus in that sun of desert, hard rocks. And in this process, Jesus that never gave up on him, because he was the chosen vase, send the spirits, the spiritual friends, Gamaliel, Abigail, in order to try to make his psychology, to change it to be absorbing this higher energy of love. So he started to think, how come all those people in the mansion, the house of the way, all these men that I'm trying to put it down, they are so filled with peace, love. How come Stephen, moment of death, horrible death, he still had love, peace to give it to me. How come Abigail, at his death, her death, bad death, she still said that he has her love to keep going. He said something's wrong. The way I'm thinking, something's wrong. So he was starting to awake. So when he approached the gate of Damascus, there was the right moment, because he was already half defeated in his ego, in his egotism, in his pride. He was already going down. So he was getting permeable to receive another lesson, a very powerful lesson. Now comes this bright light and his encounter with Jesus at the gate of Damascus. So it's all the psychological preparation. So for inner transformation, I said, to know it is not enough. Oh, I know that I have to love. I know pride is bad. I know I have to be patient. I know I cannot be so stubborn. I have to be more soft. I have to be more accepting. I know. And we tend to follow different doctrines, different guru, different books, etc. But we know we have to move forward. Next step, to feel. I have to feel it in my soul to the point I will want almost to cry, to ask for more help. Then I have to live it. And to live may mean suffering. But not only physical, because as Paul said, physical pain is nothing compared to the moral pain that we start to have when we realize, wow, how wrong I was. Why did I inflict that pain to my loved one, to the ones around me? If Jesus said, love your enemy also, why can't I be able to even love those that I love? Why can't I give chance to others? Why can't I give forgiveness? My pride, my selfishness, my intolerance. So once I realize I have to live through it, through this moral pain, and that is painful. And finally, we transcend, like Paul did in the end of his life. It takes time, decades, whole incarnation, next incarnation sometimes. It's same thing, same protocol. Also, Alcyone in Renunciation said, when you want to learn about Jesus' teachings, it's not enough to know, not enough to read it, to know by heart, decorate, to memorize. No. You have to feel it. And then you have to live it. Live the gospel of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus like he did, and transcend. So what are the roadblocks? That we all have some of them, in some extent, I would say. We have all of them, but in some extent, pride. Who doesn't have pride? Arrogance. That comes from pride. I'm so certain that I'm entitled, that I'm arrogant, and I become selfish. I don't allow any other people to have some chance in life. I become intolerant, like he did with the Christians. How come they are following? Instead, this law, Mosaic law given by the teachers, by the rabbi, all these priests, high priests, how come they're following this low class carpenter that was born in some place where didn't give any profit at that time? Because in the Mosaic law, they base a lot in the prophets that came to give the message from God, but not from that area, Galilee. But he's coming from there. Nobody cares about that place. But while I have all these vices, it's very, very difficult to transform myself and replace pride by humility, arrogance by meekness, to be meek, selfishness by generosity, intolerance by tolerance. To accept the different ones. Why they all have to be equal to me? Equal to me, but below me, because they put all the stratification, the class of the priests too. But nevertheless, no, not so different. So, in this process, slowly, if I decrease all this top imperfection, we will allow ourselves to raise, to enhance our virtues: humility, meekness, generosity, tolerance. It still is a transformation process. Like I said, it didn't happen just there when he saw Jesus saying to him, why are you prosecuting me? I am Jesus that you're trying to prosecute. Why are you doing so? No, he had to go through a process of removing the pride and put in place the humility. For that, he became blind. He was put in that inn that was a very humble inn, taken by one of his servant, but his servant left him there, blind, not knowing where he was, and in feeling his smallness. Before he was feeling big, powerful. Now in his smallness, not knowing 1 second after what would happen to him. He only knew he had to enter there in that inn, cross the gate, and wait for signs. But how long? We all know today that was 3 days, but he didn't know that time. 3 days, 30 days, 3 years in that situation. No friends, no people to order, no servants. And then comes Ananias, that he was going after. He met Jesus' light. And Jesus said to Ananias during the dream or during the night, go there and restore Saul of Tarsus. He said, how come? He was after me. You want me to go there, put myself in front of the tiger, Go there. That's my almost order. He said, yes, sir. Yes, Lord. He went there. And here comes Ananias restoring, and he says, so here's a knock, knock, knock. Who is there? It's me, my brother. Call him brother. The Jesus that showed to you in the gate of Damascus, that encounter was real. He sent me to restore your sight. That experience was right. Okay, he was happy. Oh my God, now I know, now I have the eyes, now I have you that I can learn, now I know everything about Jesus. Imagine, just one encounter, he decided he knew everything. He was impatient. Now is still old Saul. He wanted to impose to the synagogue, to his old friends, old fellows, Pharisee, what they are missing. They're missing nothing. It's not any longer the Mosaic law. Now is Jesus Christ's law. They said, are you crazy? So he was kicked off, abandoned there in the synagogue, saying that he was a traitor, he was a sick madman. So he had to be put down again. And then Ananias said, look, before you try to change others, you yourself have to change. It's a long, long journey for us to change ourselves in order to then change somebody else. So he decided, following the advice of Ananias, to go to the desert. Stayed there for 3 years. So in the process, he learned Gamaliel, his tutor, was there in the Palmyra. And he met Gamaliel for the last time. Gamaliel by then was already a Christian. And Gamaliel gave him Levi's manuscript that was given to him by Peter, Simon Peter. He said, but teacher, don't you need, master, don't you need? Also, no, I know by memory because I copied many times this manuscript. So I know. So I give to you because these manuscripts may be your doorway for the people that still don't believe on you, your transformation, to start to believe you. So take it. It's going to be more useful to you than to me. So he spent 3 years in the oasis of Dan, near Palmyra, in the desert of Syria. Who he finds there? Who he finds there? Aquila and Prisca, which were former Saul's victims. They were in that oasis in the desert because of Saul, because Saul was going after them. So after the end of 3 years, he finally confessed to them who he really was. And he had the greatest response from Aquila and Prisca, say, because he asked, what Jesus would say to you if I tell you I am the Saul of Tarsus, the former persecutor of Jesus' followers. They said, he would say, to accept you as a brother. It's a great opportunity for us to put forward the teaching of our master. Because if we don't forgive you, give you the opportunity, we miss our master's teachings. So if you go to the Sermon of the Mountains, all the Beatitudes, you're gonna see all the paradigm, all the protocol that we should follow in order to change, to transform, to morally transform ourselves, which is the first Beatitude. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Paul had to leave his pride, his arrogance, in order to be humble, poor of spirit, in order to start absorb the love for the others, for the love to the even to the enemy. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. So only decide, well, now I know to be to this pride made me, make some mistake. No, it's not enough. I have to feel in my heart the pain that I caused by my pride, by my selfishness. So it's a mourning. I mourn. I cry what I have done, over what I have done. I'm feeling the pain of those vices in my heart. And I want now to change myself to the point to cry. You see this in the mediumistic meeting. Finally, when the heart and spirit finally get it, he cries. He cries. Yes, I understood now. I go now after, change myself in order to try to connect to my loved ones. Because now I live out all this eager to persecute my enemies, the enemies of my family. They cry because now they are getting it. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. So the earth is not for the pride, for the strong, for the arrogant, are for the meek. It's still, soul's transformation process goes on. He didn't get it totally. So he had to go his road back. So if he going after Ananias, he went from Jerusalem to Damascus. In this road, until sees Jesus' light, now he had to go back from Damascus to Jerusalem. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Now he's feeling hunger for be correct, to be right, because he made a mistake. But now he's got hunger and thirst for righteousness. For that, he had to go through all these people that he made suffer. So he decided to go from Damascus to Jerusalem, and in the process, of course, he stopped at the lake. He tried to talk to many people that knew Jesus in person, that were still there, or that could tell him what Jesus Christ's teaching and company was. Mary Magdalene, all the people that were still there, the followers that were still in the area of the lake. Then was not enough. He went down. He said he had to meet the men of the way and ask for their forgiveness. By then he learned all the group of Simon Peters were doing all the healings, not only inside the house of the way, but the street healing, performing quote unquote miracles in the name of Jesus. And there he felt first the rejection, because all the men of the way only heard bad things about. Let me go very quickly because the time is running. But finally, he also felt the big rejection by his father that called him a traitor. He was the reason his mother died, etc. In this process of crying painfully, he had a dream with Abigail, and Abigail gave the advice: love, work, hope, and forgive. So he started to humbly, he understood, to work as a weaver, as a weaver. His voice disappeared, his capability to as an orator, to debate disappeared. So he had to humbly talk to the local people that came to his tent, to finally he was granted the opportunity to go with Barnabas in the missionary journeys, and he became the famous apostle of Gentile. He performed some miracles like this Sergio Paulus had a magician that was deceiving him, and Paul healed Sergio Paulus. And one says that the adoption of Paulus' name was because of Sergio Paulus, the Roman, that gave the first building or house in order for him to open the church there. And he made the magician temporarily blind and then restored. So he was performing a very impacting activity. He had the great happiness to meet many good followers. And one is Timothy, this 13 years old boy that followed him the next decades and be the big, not only to his heart, his son, but a great propagator of the Christianity. And here he dictating the famous letters, the letters to the groups, epistle, and some he wrote by himself. In the Corinthians 2 Corinthians 11, he says all the hardship that he passed in order to testimony, to give the testimonial of his devotion and his mission to Christ, to his teachings. So if you go to 2 Corinthians 11, you're going to see that he had to run away in a basket. He was beaten by a poison snake, but he didn't die. He was stoned. He was lashes. He received many lashes, 39, many times. He almost died many times in some drawing in the sea, etc., etc. So he gives all the lists of his things. Plus, he has to take care of the church. So why you Christians are complaining, he says, that's nothing. So he says, blessed are those, the last of the Beatitudes, blessed are those who prosecute because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of God. He finally let him be prosecuted in the name of Jesus. So, inner transformation to know, to feel, to live, and transcend. Paul went through all these 4 steps because in the end, in Galatians 2:20, he said, I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I that live, but Christ living in me. So he transcended. He was in some ecstasy. He could not feel anymore the physical pain because his soul was liberated. So thank you, friends. Thank you for your attention. And now I am here to answer or to clarify some of your reflections. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As we go back to this time, and let's look at some of the questions that we received, Yasco. I just want to say what a beautiful, beautiful narrative based on the book, right? Paul and Stevens, as you mentioned in the beginning, which was dictated through the mediumship of Francisco Candido Xavier, a very famous Brazilian medium, and through the writings of Emmanuel. And you mentioned before, beyond Emmanuel, there are others that were dictating the story of the transformation of Saul into Paul. And with that, let me look at some of the questions, and we have a few more minutes. Is that okay, Yasco, for us to
Yes,
keep
perfect.
talking? So,
Certainly.
yeah, so I wanted to start from one comment that I received, and let me put you into the screen for you to take a look. Here we mention you here, right? You mentioned inner transformation requires more than knowledge. Hence, to know is not enough. Oh, what an impactful line! How can we best be ready to transcend and reach our own inner transformation?
Yes, I think it's first of all, Marcy, I don't know if it's out of our impatience, out of a misleading of some of the tutorials, doctrine, or out of how
Mm-hmm.
we interpret, we think we can transform like this. It
Mm-hmm.
happens, some impacting event like the one that happened to Saul at Damascus. He had a chat, a very clear conversation that showed that, wow, he learned now. He would say, well, now he's going to just leave his pride, leave all this. No. It happened to Publio Lentulus.
Mm-hmm.
Was it enough for him to know and encounter Jesus personally? To have his beloved Flavia,
Mm-hmm.
daughter, be cured, to have his beloved Livia happy in her motherhood, thanking him so much what he did. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
he almost went backwards completely. He denied out of his pride because we go back and forth, back and forth. Sometimes we go very much backwards, and sometimes it's difficult to reach back the cord, the rope to be rescued. So happened to Publio Lentulus. He had to go through horrible hardship because in meantime, not only he denied Jesus, not only he denied that Jesus did something wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
that Jesus gave him that advice. Oh, pay attention. Why did you come hidden like this to talk to me? Why didn't you open yourself? Why you still want to hide behind your vestment of a Roman? Now he deceived Livia's love. He slaved her, separating her from her family until the last moment. And when he realized that woman, that lady that died in the circus was Livia.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, he suffered. He let Livia suffer the kidnap of Marcus, his young or their young son, because he was merciless with a young boy that threw a stone in the carriage when he was moving to Jerusalem. And the father, vengeful father, said, well, you were not merciful to my son. He was also a boy. And plus, he didn't do anything. I'm begging for your forgiveness. He went there. He said, no. So he kidnapped the young baby. What a pain for Livia
Mm-hmm.
out of his pride. Did he learn? No. until the last moment when he was imprisoned by these rebels, directed by no other person than Andre, which was the father of that boy. And he bring Marcus now, 40 years old, 30 years old, that was made a slave of him, to be the one to make him blind with those hot iron. And he said, in the end, when he was imprisoned, because then came the Roman, he said, we were so disgraced people, me and you. Look what we did. Please. Because what he said, I did this to you, I kidnapped your son, I did this the way I infiltrate a person there. I didn't give a chance to that boy, Marcus. I made him do the worst of the job, worse than any slave, in order for my vengeance to you. He's nothing. I remove all his future, all his soul in my act. So please forgive me. And now Publio Lentus said, yes, I forgive you. In that moment, because they were these two disgraced father after all this thing. So this to transcend in that moment, how much pain we have to go through it. So those are two examples, but there are so many others. And we know that. I know I have to be patient with my mother, I have to be patient with my son, I have to accept this person that's no. I know, but if I'm not feeling, if I'm not living that message that I'm reverberating in my brain, if it's not in my heart, no, it will take many incarnations to that, it to transcend more. So Paul was, we have to give because he was an example, because he did this in one incarnation, but he was a prepared vase, prepared. He had to be molded slowly, painfully, in order to accept Jesus Christ's final, teachings of love and compassion.
Absolutely. And then we often say, right, Paul was an example to for all of us, because in one lifetime he did so much, and we have many different opportunities. We are not asked here to be Paul, but we certainly can translate these examples that you brought forth here, Yasco, into an inspiring call for us to lead our own inner transformation, which uses the mechanism of self-discovery, right? That inner voyage, confronting all of the good, the bad, and the ugly that we bring for us. So
See
I just
what
want.
Publio Lentulus, Paul is
Mm,
not alive, but Publio Lentulus now, because
mm,
only in the end he realized he had to come many incarnations to accept the position of a slave,
yes,
the lower class, and all the religious figure that he came in the later incarnation, in order to be the Emmanuel that we know today, which we know is not yet, is very the earth level. Imagine how much more we have to go in order to be those high level spirits. It's a
yes,
long term, but God has eternity for us.
yes. And with the mercy and love, I just want to read something, because I know we're approaching our time to conclude our talk, Yasco. But if you go to Amazon, and this can be anyone, but the Amazon excerpt of the book by which you based your lecture, it starts with a question that is so cool. It says, we are faced with this question. How did an old man trip to the market to buy fish and vegetables lead to a chain of cause and effect events that would change the religious face of the world forever? And I love it. I love it because things that may happen in our lives, right, Yasko, can be just like that. We're going to the market, we're going to buy fish and vegetables, and that triggers some thing, some event that will reverberate into our entire individuality, our entire predisposition, as you brought forth, in terms of all the real attributes of Paul, right? That made him. There were obstacles, but made him ready to do the mission that he came to do. So
You see,
this is
yeah.
beautiful.
What I feel is that we come to this incarnations in planets like the Earth
Mhm.
mostly for trials, simple trials. Let me see if what I learn in the spiritual world I can, test with this flesh, patience, whatever. Like I said, okay, be born in a city that the traffic is
Yeah.
horrible, and see if I can practice, like you say, patience.
Mhm.
But in the process, out of my anger, my old vices, old me, I kill one person
Mm.
out of my anger. Now I acquire expiation.
Yeah.
I acquired people that had nothing to do with my circle. It was a stranger, it was just a mean for me to practice either goodness, forgiving. Look, you are in a rush, me too, let's see, etc., etc. But no, you go back, get a gun, and shoot him. So it was just a trial, but we transformed that in a horrible expiation and acquire many enemies.
Mhm.
Enemies, because then the family doesn't forgive you because
Yeah.
you removed their way, their father, their son, etc. And this stays for century, millennia, going
Yeah.
after us.
And
So
and I want to
yeah,
say, yeah, and I want to say, sorry to interrupt you, Yasko, but I want to say to all of us, right? This is because we look at it and say, Yasko, sorry, but I'm no murderer, right? I don't go killing even by mistake and create all of this. But I think we also have to think that sometimes we kill, right? Metaphorically speaking, we kill the goodness in that person, that readiness to be well, and I think those are equally important aspects for us to think about ourselves, right?
very important.
Right? We How do we live life? How do we see our role, each one of us, uh, to help the other, to be good to the other, to bring the other, uplift the other for their own road of self discovery and inner transformation,
It's
without putting them down so that we can feel better, right?
when you kill the opportunities for one to
Hmm.
have chance in life,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we erase their own individuality, make
Yes.
a mess. So it's moral slavery is very, we
Hmm.
all do that.
Yes. Yes.
Moral slavery to our children, even to our beloved ones.
Yes.
If we
Yes.
don't give the opportunity for that soul, it's not ours. That spirit doesn't belong to us. It's just
Yes.
granted a temporary, you know. Uh,
Such amazing messages here today. Thank you. Thank you so much, Yasco. We have reached our time,
Thank
so I
you.
wanted to ask, if you don't mind, if you could say a prayer
Yes,
before we say goodbye.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's concentrate our mind, our heart, feeling with the best of our intentions, best of our thoughts, emotions, in order to raise our thought, our soul to God, to Jesus Christ, to Mary, our mother. So let's try the best of us to start this conversation with God, with this connection. First, to tell how much grateful we are for the opportunity of this incarnation and so many others that were granted to us, in order for us to step by step become better today than yesterday, to become better tomorrow by being better today, to try to learn that only love, compassion to myself, to others, to my neighbor, and to my enemy will make me evolve steadily towards this deterministic state of perfection. So thankful, God, for you, for your merciful law, giving to all of us without any difference, no matter if I even believe in you, but nonetheless is given the opportunity, the same chance, the same circumstance, the same trials, the same helpers, the same assistant, both in the spiritual world and from the incarnated world. We're so thankful for the friends, for the family that you gave to us in this incarnation. We hope, we hope we can be the most fine vase that we can be today in order to transmit, to propagate your doctrine of love. Please give strength to those that are so much in need in this time of the earth transition. Give hope to those that are in desperation. Give the opportunity to redo their wrongdoing and to have granted the forgiveness for those that are around. For your forgiveness is not even in account. As you with your big love, transcendental love, will love me in any way. Thank you so much for this opportunity, friends and family around me. And so be it.
So be it. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Marcia.